And we would like to now move on to our update, and we have our daily floods update that we have every day on our bulletin. And this morning we're glad to be joined by Abbas, who is the Secretary General of the Kenya Red Cross. We thank you so much for joining us this morning on Sunrise Live. Now we're hearing some of the statistics that are coming out. 64,000 families. We're hearing those are some of the numbers who have been displaced. Let's talk about the operation that's taking place. Who's been affected? Which are the areas that are hardest hit?
Presently, the worst affected areas are Garissa, the whole Tana Delta belt, Garissa, Tana River itself, from Bura to Hola to the Delta itself in Minjila and Garsen area, and then Malindi, which was initially the worst affected. We also know that every province literally has been affected in the country. We have Migori, Nyando, we've seen areas of Busia, we've seen areas of Narok, Kajiado, we've seen here in Nairobi, we've seen in Muranga, we've seen it in Kirinyaga, in Laikipia. So they really, in Naivasha a lot, Mahiu, but we've also seen it in Turkana. So there isn't a single province that has not been affected by the current.
And just to understand that not all areas have been affected by heavy rains. We know in Kilifi it's due to the bursting of the banks. Yes. Let's talk about some of the effects of the floods that perhaps cause havoc for many residents.
So Yvonne, in terms of people that have been affected, in fact the numbers can be much higher, close to between 80 and even 100,000 would be affected. IDPs or displaced persons as a result of the flooding, these are the numbers people talk about, 60,000. In the lower delta of the Tana, if you look all the areas that are affected, whether it's in Migori or Nyando or Kano Plains, or it is the Tana River or the Malindi areas, these are areas where it is as a result of rains in upcountry and where the rivers have burst their banks in these lowland areas, and this is the danger. And the danger today is that there's still stagnant water. People have been displaced. They need food, they need health, they need water, they need shelter, they need to recover eventually also. I mean, recovery, farms have been washed away, animals have been killed, infrastructure damage has been huge. So the recovery is going to cost much more than one could imagine. Farmers along the river whose farms have been washed away, some like in Tana River, as recent as only a few months ago, we'd given them seeds to plant. After the violence that took place in Tana Delta since August last year. So they had just planted. Now all has been washed out. They'll go back to food aid. Then we need to prepare to give them seeds to grow again, because they live along river banks, and these are people who would never leave these river banks.
Indeed. Let's talk about the rescue operations that we have continued to see members of the Kenya Red Cross carrying out in the various parts. Let's talk about how that rescue is structured and which are the areas that need quite a bit of help.
Well, today I think the area that was worst hit in terms of being cut off has been this whole area of Kilifi County and outside Malindi, where a number of villages were cut off. So that's when we had the first air rescue, where we started rescuing children. We have done it, the government has done it in the Garissa area. There was a Isiolo area that was earlier done. Presently, as we talk here, we are rescuing people out by using boats in the Tana Delta, in Hola, in Bura, and even in the Garsen area. So we've been using land, which is by road, we've been using boats, and we've been using also helicopters to land in this strategic place. And largely children and women are the people that we've been trying to evacuate, because the men say they want to protect their properties, they're afraid their properties may be looted. All
right, so they stay behind to guard their properties.
Yes.
And the women are the ones that you are involved in rescuing in that process. What, if anything, can we as Kenyans do to assist the people that we see, to assist the Kenya Red Cross, maybe in terms of volunteering? What else can we do? Because sometimes we feel helpless. We sit down and we watch these pictures on television. Sure. What can we do?
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of goodwill by Kenyans, and there's emotional outpouring, and people are sympathetic. People have always been generous. One thing that we haven't done so far, because we thought, look, I mean, we'll try to handle this issue on our own and not burden Kenyans. But I think sooner than later we would have to probably launch an appeal to ask Kenyans to assist materially and financially, so that we can reach these people. It's primarily now what we are doing is emergency intervention, getting people out of these flood-prone areas, putting them to higher grounds in schools, in churches, in mosques and other compounds, and then giving them support temporarily for now. So we'll need food stuff, and the food again is clear: maize, beans, oil, or even tea, whatever we get, we will collect and go and deliver. Shelter, health, water, sanitation, because there's plenty of water, but it's raw water, so we'll have to purify and treat the water. So we've been water tracking already, working closely with the government. The government has been looking at the area of food. There's a challenge even in accessing some of these areas, but that's the area they've been working on. Then really the air rescue that we've been doing is quite costly, because we don't have our own planes, so we have to then hire helicopters from the private companies, and it's been quite costly to do that. So we would ask Kenyans eventually, maybe through an appeal, to help us. But what I'm more interested is in mid to long term, where really people have to go back to their land, but they would need to get seeds and tools so that they can replant again, because they have water along the riverbeds.
Okay. Finally, while we have you here, let's talk about our disaster management procedure, awareness of events like this when they're about to happen. The Meteorological Department had been warning about this exact situation before the rains began. Our preparedness for disasters such as this, and it is commendable, the job that we see the Kenya Red Cross doing. We've seen the military coming in to help, but it always seems like as a nation we are more reactive. The Kenya Red Cross can only do so much when it comes to rescue and recovery operations, but let's talk about our preparedness as a nation. From where you're sitting, taking a look at this, are we ready, and what do we need to do?
Well, I've always said every country can be ready within its own context, but I mean certainly our preparedness level is wanting, to be honest, and to be self-critical as a nation. We can do much better. It's not for lack of resources. We have resources, whether human, financial or material, but we always lack from one disaster to another, and we just seem to be always firefighting. We could be better prepared. We could put things in place. Yes, and I always take off my hat for the Meteorological Department and the ICPAC, the Climate Center in this region, that always are spot on with the information. And Kenyans have been very skeptical about weather predictions, but today scientifically this can be almost to the date. We were told this 4 or 5 months ago. And what did we do then as a nation? Did we get prepared? Did we expect this would happen? I'm very sad on one side that all these volumes of water going into the Indian Ocean and Lake Victoria, what normally happens is when you have this kind of rainfall, the next rainfall is less, and you get into a drought and emergency situation. Again, we get into another one. So water harvesting is something that we've been very poor at as a nation, because today all this water should be harvested, and then there'll be you're not based on rain-fed agriculture, but you do irrigation. So you move on with there are countries, desert countries, that don't have a third of the water that we have, yet they are food self-sufficient, and we are not prepared. So I would say overall, in the scale of 1 to 10 in terms of disaster management, I would say we're less than 5.
Okay, all right. Something definitely needs to be done. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing, and indeed on behalf of, I think, all Kenyans, particularly those in the affected areas, we do thank you for always responding to that call very fast and just reminding us that we do need to be prepared in the event of these disasters. Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Abbas, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya Red Cross, on the operations that are taking place to rescue those and to be able to get them back to normalcy after the floods that are ravaging many parts of the country. The Meteorological Department estimates that this will continue right through to the end of next month. Are we prepared? What do we need to do? And I think there's lots we also need to do in terms of supporting the Red Cross and all the others that are involved in that rescue operation. Remember, our Floods Watch continues every single day right here on KTN throughout our bulletins, just letting you know what's being done and what indeed needs to be done. We want to take a short break now. It's around 8 o'clock on this 23rd day of April 2013. You're watching KTN Sunrise Live. When we come back, Shackles of Doom.